Welcome back. Happy Mermay. Today I'm going to share my process for this doll. I'm going to speed through the prepping process because I actually didn't record most of it as well. So I'm starting with a Generation 3 Core Refresh Cleo de Nile. I am trimming all of the hair, separating the colors so that I can reuse them, putting her into a cup of boiling water, pulling off her head once it's softened. Don't ask why I did this without gloves or a towel. I don't know what I was thinking. And then I'm going to, with a flathead screwdriver, pull all the hair into the head and then pull it out through the neck hole with tweezers. And then the head will be prepped and we'll be ready to start actually doing creative stuff rather than just the prep, which is a fun part, but we're through it. So firstly, I'm going to be starting, this entire outfit is basically based off of Core Refresh Laguna's outfit. So I'm taking her pants, which have this blue shorts part, this fishnet part, and then this mesh part. I'm separating the mesh part from the fishnet part, and I'm sewing the two pieces together to make like one big rectangle of the mesh. And then I'm going to be folding it in half lengthways and gathering it onto this baby blue ribbon that I have to kind of make like a gathered meshy top. I thought it would look nice, and I think it does. But so that's what I'm doing here. I've gathered the fabric and then I'm back stitching it onto the ribbon. I should have used baby blue thread, but oh well. And then in the end, it'll kind of tie around her neck like that. And for the reroot, I have some like near white saran and then the yellow blonde saran that comes with Laguna. And I will be rerooting her with that. I think I mixed them together a bit. And I'm not going to show you the rerooting because this hair was quite loose and messy to work with. And so I just wanted to do it in the peace of my own company. Here, reroot is done. I painted the scalp like a bit of a darker yellow, just so that it looked natural and more blonde. And I left her hair in braids when I boil washed it so that she'd have kind of beachy waves. Now for the body, I also didn't show this because I was honestly kind of scared. I used my new Dremel that I got as a birthday gift to sand off all of Cleo's bandages, her underwear, and like the printing on the back. And I also learned that Dremels actually move too fast for plastic. It will just melt it. So the last little bit, I had to do all of it with sandpaper. I sat at my desk for hours and hours, just carefully sanding down her body until she was perfectly smooth. And I actually had a lot of trouble with the leg. I think the plastic on the leg and the hand is really quite soft, and so it's really hard to get it smooth. And I also use the scalpel to scrape at the seams. I never used to because I thought it was quite difficult, but it turns out it's actually really easy. You just hold the scalpel at like just under a 90-degree angle and just scrape, and the seams come off so easily. Now I'm using a nail polish remover that has acetone in it. I don't use pure acetone because I'm a bit cautious of strong chemicals like that, and this works well enough. You'll see that the first Q-tip gets most of the paint off, but it leaves a couple smears. I find that a clean Q-tip with new, fresh nail polish remover will get it all off, and I haven't had any problems with that, so I will keep using my own method. And once I'm done with that, you'll see me actually going in with a matte acrylic varnish on a Q-tip, both on her forehead, where you may be able to tell that I sanded down her brow ridge a little bit. Cleo has a really defined, really sharp brow ridge, and I wanted to soften that for her a little bit. See there, I'm putting the varnish on the tiny little plate. And then I'm using a Q-tip and just rubbing that in. I'm also mostly doing this on all of the parts of her body where I sanded, because I find that even if you sand it with the finest sandpaper, it will still be slightly like dull. And especially on darker skinned dolls, this step can really help get rid of like that ashy look. You just rub in the thinnest layer. You can see I will pick it up with one side of the Q-tip, kind of dab it on and then spread it with the other side of the Q-tip, which can absorb the excess. And it brings the shine of the plastic back. It hides the fact that you ever sanded it and just makes it look really beautiful and smooth. And I did find a small problem with Cleo, which is that because she has this very fine shimmer in her plastic, having sanded her leg, you can still see the bandages, even though she's sanded as smooth as I could get it. And that's simply because I think the shimmery particles kind of settled into the shape of the mold. And so I just had to accept that she was never going to look perfectly smooth. And I didn't want to paint her to like hide that texture because I specifically picked Cleo because of her skin tone. Her skin is, especially on the core refresh, is this very warm, almost orangey mid-tone brown. And then the shimmer also just makes her look sun-kissed. And this character is one that spends all her time on the beach. I'll tell you more about her when we get a bit further into the face-up. But now I'm starting. You can see I have my palette with 4 colors of acrylic wash. I have red, I have yellow, I have white, and I have Prussian blue. And then I have a little bit of acrylic matte medium. And I mixed those into a peachy color quite close to her skin tone, but a bit brighter and lighter and a bit more pinkish. And I'm using the mold as a guide to find where I want to put her eyes. I put her eyes a bit higher on the mold than Cleo's original eyes, just to give her slightly more realistic proportions. I wanted this doll to look really soft and almost a bit, a lot more realistic than my usual quite cartoony style. And I painted in the shape of her eyebrows, which are quite bushy and loose. And now starts the process for this not realistic, but more detailed, more soft, more blended face-up, which is that I just kept mixing slightly darker, slightly differently toned colors and just going over the same lines I'd already sketched out. So I'm going in with a bit more orangey of a color to go over the lips again and to define the eyelashes and the eye creases, and I will go in and paint some more brush strokes on the eyebrows, and then just that on and on and on. And because I'm constantly mixing colors that are only slightly different and layering them but not fully covering the last color, it ends up giving the painting a lot of dimension. Now I'm going in with like a bit of a dusty brown to add more layers. It's really hard to specifically explain it, but it's really just going in with a color that's kind of like what I wanted and then going over it again and over it again and over it again. And I'm going in with white to define the scleras. You can see I've gone in for her irises with like this really warm brown, and now I'm going in with a bit of a dusty like cream color, and I'm adding some shading to the scleras, and then I'm adding some to the inside of the iris, and then I'm adding some to the eyebrows. And you can really just, you can watch. Also, what I'm doing right now, which I will actually remove later so I cut out all the footage, but whenever I mix a color that's kind of close to the skin tone, I kept dotting random little dots over her face to try and make freckles. But I think they came out a bit too big, so I ended up removing them and trying again. Here for the pupil, I'm actually using a dark purple and not a black. I used no black in this face up because I wanted her to look soft and beachy. And my concept for this character, her name is Summer. She is a marine biologist student. She lives by the coast studying marine biology. Her favorite animal is a dolphin. And whenever she's not in class whenever she's not in class, I picture that she's on the beach studying or surfing or swimming or sunbathing, and she just loves the ocean and the water, and her favorite thing is to sit in the sand and enjoy the sun. And that's our first character for my mermaid combination, and you might be surprised that she's not a mermaid at all. Just you wait. I have something great coming up, but I need to work on it for a while longer, so this is going to be here to hopefully get you excited for my next video. I have no idea how it's going to turn out. I'm right now looking at just pieces laying on my desk. Like, Summer is done. She looks beautiful. She looks stunning. I'm so happy with her. I'm actually recording this before I'm done editing. Like, I have the clips laid out already. I'm watching the face up progress, which hopefully it's been interesting to see how it just slowly progresses with different colors. I thought it was really interesting looking back at it while editing. But tomorrow I'm gonna see if I can take some pictures with her outside, which is exciting. First time I've done that. I haven't had the balls to, but tomorrow I'm going on a walk with my partner, and we might end up in a place where there's some sand, which might be the perfect place for Summer to have a little photo shoot. So back to the face up. Right now I'm mixing, or trying to mix, a color that is as close as possible to her skin tone. I always do a little swatch on the forehead so that I see a direct comparison, but also so that I can see how it dries. And then I'm going in and I'm cleaning up my work. At this point, I felt like I was close to done, and I needed to see how like clean and neat my shapes were to be able to kind of add the final touches. So I'm cleaning up the eyelashes, the eye creases, all of that. I'm also in a bit going to go in and like soften the front of her eyebrow with a couple of brush strokes. And after that, I'm going to just go in and add more contrast and clarity. For her eyebrows, I wanted them to be as blonde as the rest of her hair. I picture that it's probably mostly sun bleached. Maybe she's a natural blonde, but she spends so much time in the sun that she might as well be. And then for her skin tone, as I said, I wanted her to look very sun-kissed. You'll see later, I did my first go at body blushing, which was scary because I only use acrylics, but I think it turned out beautiful and fun and amazing. And here, this is actually where I think she comes alive. You can see the contrast between the one eye and the other. I added a darker line to the top of the eye, right under the lash line, and now I'm going in with darks at the top of the iris and lights to add more texture. And I'm darkening her eyelashes a little bit. I tried really hard to keep the eyelashes light because blonde hair, light eyelashes makes a lot of sense, but still have them present enough that they would add that texture and that girliness to her look, because I really wanted her to look very pretty. I wanted her to be like the girl that you see at the beach that you look at and you go, oh my god, she's so cool, she's so pretty. But then you find out that she's a huge nerd about the ocean and dolphins, and as long as you like chat with her about ocean creatures, you'll get along with her fine. That was the vibe I was going for. So I wanted her to look really pretty, but also quite soft. Yeah, and now here we're adding the eye shines already. So she's nearly done, and it's so exciting. I'm so happy with how she turned out. I'm really glad that I tried something new, something different. Here I'm taking out her little braids to show off her beachy waves, which are so messy. They look so messy, but I feel like it's very appropriate. I don't think she takes the time to brush her hair. Her hair is crusty with ocean water, and I think it's great. I think it's wonderful. I put it into 2 little ponytails so that it would sit nicely when I put some sunglasses on the top of her head later. And here we're going in and glossing our eyes. Looking up close at her eyes, I'm so happy with how they turned out. And I tried to also give her lips quite a lot of texture, but to make them look very natural. I did put gloss on them in the end. I thought maybe I should leave that away, but I think she does wear SPF lip balm. Maybe she wears SPF everywhere and she just spends so much time in the sun that it doesn't even really matter. Because now I'm going in with a brush that I've cut off to be very blunt, and it's quite a stiff brush. I made the bristles quite short, and then I'm grabbing the tiniest amount of paint, kind of rubbing it on my paint palette till it's dry, and then I'm rubbing that into her skin. And this was actually kind of tricky. I found that just going carefully, at some point I get like a wet Q-tip to try and blend things out. I patted it a lot with my fingers, and it was really just trial and error, but I am blushing the heck out of her. Even her ears, even like any bit that is facing up, so the sun, I am going in and making it look sunburned. and I think it's adorable. I think it's so cute. I'm really really pale myself, and so I wear a lot of sunscreen, and I'm very careful to not get sunburned because I recognize that it's a big risk for just like your health and your safety to get sunburns. I'm not looking to get skin cancer or something like that. However, when it's a doll, this is a little plastic woman. She can get as sunburnt as she wants, and it looks so cute. It looks so cute. Here I'm dry brushing the toes, and little areas like this where you have like things that stick out and things that recess. It is so nice to dry brush actually, because it just looks good. It looks great. It looks wonderful, and it's easy. And then with bits like this where I'm doing her lower back, that's a bit trickier because it's just one big smooth surface, and so you can see I'm using the Q-tip to smooth it out. But I just did all the surfaces that I felt faced up. And then also bits like her fingers, and I did her elbows, I did her knees, I did the fronts of her calves and her thighs, I did her shoulders and like the top of her chest. Here I'm doing the fingers, which is just so satisfying to do. Her like décolletage, I did her nose, I did the top of her eyebrows, like on her forehead, I did her cheeks, her chin. I remember being a kid and my dad would always like make sure to put sunscreen on my ears. And then I mixed a very warm, very liquidy brown. I actually put some, I think I put matte varnish into this mix just to make sure that it was super secure when that I did do it. And then I took the same stiff brush, dipped it in there, and flicked it with my thumb to give her freckles. And I made sure to protect her eyes so that she didn't get freckles there. She does have freckles in her eyebrows, but I think that's fine. And then I dressed her in her little bikini and peel off her fucking, oh my gosh, I'm so happy. Sorry for cursing. I'm so happy with how she turned out. I hope you enjoyed watching. I hope you enjoyed seeing my process. I hope you're excited to see my second part of this mermaid process. What do you think it'll be? Let me know. And yeah, okay. See you soon. Thanks for watching. Bye.